Hello everyone, my name is Manuel Tan, and he is Atienza, and in this video presentation, we will be discussing our outputs for our first performance task in ITEC 102. So buckle up as we go over the pseudocodes, flowcharts, source codes, and the actual programs for each activity. Now for the first activity, we are tasked to write a program that prompts the user to enter their first name, last name, and age. Store these in appropriate variables and display a greeting message including their full name and age. Now, the flowchart and the pseudocode will be discussed by my partner Atienza.
So let's start with the oval shape, which is the start. Next one is the parallelogram, which input user first name. Next is diamond, which is the decision. Does user first name contains numbers? If yes, we use on-page connector, which is the circle A. This is the on-page connector. Parallelogram, which is the display error message. Also parallelogram as user if they want to retry. Next is the diamond. Does the user want to retry? If yes, B, which is connected to start, which means the user want to retry. If no, this is connected to end, and the user doesn't want to retry. Moving on to input user last name, which is the parallelogram. Does user last name contains numbers? If yes, move to the on-page connector, which is the same with the first one. Display error message as user if they want to retry. Diamond, does the user want to retry? If yes, this is connected to E, which is the user want to retry. If no, also this is connected to end. Moving on to the next one, which is the input user last age. The diamond and the next diamond is user age number. If no, this is connected to this one on page connector, which display error message as user if they want to retry. Next one is diamond. Does the user want to retry? If yes, F, which is connected again to input user age if the user want to retry. If no, this is connected to end, and if is back to diamond, this one is user age number. If yes, all this will print the welcome messages. And last is the end, which is the oval shape.
Okay, so this is our program, and now let's first begin with the showcase before we go on to the source code. And this is the actual showcase for the program. So we enter our first name, our last name, and our age, and we should be greeted with a greeting message. Hello there, Manuel Tan. Welcome to the fundamentals of computer programming. I see you're 18 years old, and then press any key to continue, which just means that if you press any key, the program will terminate, as so. Now, I've also implemented 3 error handlers, or I think 2, but yeah, and they are pretty cool. So, for the first and last name, we only need to receive letters. This means that numbers and other special symbols like underscores, dashes aren't allowed. However, white spaces are allowed because first name and last names may contain spaces, or 2 words to be exact. So let us demonstrate the first error handler. So we have a number. As you can see, error, your first name contains invalid characters. Would you like to retry Y or N? Y or N stands for yes or no. If we type in Y, it goes back to the previous prompt. Let's say a hashtag, or let's just say these. Again, invalid. Now, what would happen if the user entered N? Well, it's just going to terminate the program. So here, let's proceed with the last name. The last name is just the same as the first name. Same logic applies, but this time, the progress saves. And by that, I mean, we no longer have to enter the first name over and over again, but the progress saves because of a loop. So now we only have to enter our last name as the first name. Data has been saved. So that percentage, and let's retry, and n terminates it. So now as for the age, it's the opposite, but what we want for the age is just the numbers, right? So now we ban letters and other special symbols. So if we add here that, we type in n, y I mean, so it goes back to the age because of the progress saving, y again, and y again. And afterwards, we are greeted with a message once all of the information has been inputted and received by the program. Moving on, let's go into the source code itself. So we begin with variable declaration, int user age num, string user first name, last name, age, answer, booleans, start, continue ln, continue to age, contains only char. So as you can see here, we have two user ages. Why is that? Well, this user age, which is a data type string, I use this for the storage of the input of the user. And once we check, or once the system checks, if the user's age contains only numbers, that is only when it gets converted into an integer. Now let's start with line 17, the do while loop. So we start with a loop, do while start is equals to true or is true. This is a comparative equal sign, or I think it's a logical equal sign. And so basically what it does, do while, it's going to do all of these program, all while start equals true. So this is what's responsible for the saved data, for the saving progress I mean. Same goes with this and this. Moving on, we're gonna have to turn it off so that our loop doesn't keep on looping. Then we prompt the user to enter the first name, we store it into the user first name, and now this, all of this, that part right there, that's the part where we check the first name if it only contains letters. So for each character, name is letter in user first name. So this is basically just checking each of the characters inside user first name. If car is letter, or if not, so the way you read this, if the letter is not just letters but is mixed with special symbols, then contains only characters is false. Now don't mind this, this is just for the purpose of ignoring the white space. So as you can see here, white space. So it just ignores the white space in our first name. That is how we were able to enter a white space even though it was just also a special symbol. And after that, break, and then we go back to another conditional statement. If contains character is false, then we send an error message, would you like to retry y and n, and then we store their user response in the user answer, because you know we're asking them for our response. Then we store it, and now if user answer is y or capital Y, which stands for yes, then contains only character is true. This is just for resetting this. So we reset that in order for us, or for the system, to recheck the user first name again. And we start the loop. What this does is that we're going to go back all the way to here. As if you remember the do while loop, it does all of these codes all while start equals true. And then we clear the console just so that it's clean. Now else, if the contains character is true, then we proceed to the last name. This is the loop for the last name, so that when they want to retry, we go back to here. And all of this logic is the same as the first name, so I won't be tackling that in order for us to save time. So here we go. If contains character is false, then error handling. Else, if it's true, we go to here. We continue to the age. Do while continue to age equals true. So that's again another loop. Then we turn it off so that it doesn't keep on looping. Enter your age. And we store it to the user age as we ask for their response. Boolean is only num is equals to int that try parse user age out user age num. Now this is the part where we convert user age, if you remember, is a string, into user age num, which is an integer. Now This just tries parsing it. And this is an indicator to see if the parsing is successful or not. So Boolean is only num is equals to try parse user age into an integer. Afterwards, once it has been parsed successfully, it's going to be transferred, or the data will be transferred into user age num. If is only num is false, or if the parsing was not successful, error, your age contains invalid characters, would you like to retry? So error message, again, if the user answer is y, continue to age true, which just goes all the way back here, and clear the console so that it's clean. Else, if the parsing was successful, that means user age num now has data. Then we can go to here, console, write line, and greeting message. There, as you can see there. While continue to age is equals to true. So all of that. Now you might be wondering why I'm using the string version. Well, this purpose is for user age num's purpose is for checking if user age is actually a number. And that's the end for our activity 1 name greeting program. And as you can see here, it's at around 100 lines of code, which I purposely did just so it looks clean. And moving on. So for the second activity, we are tasked to write a program that calculates the area of a circle. Ask the user to input the radius and store the result in a double variable. Use the formula area equals pi multiplied by r squared, or radius squared. And as always, the flowchart will be presented by my partner, Atienza.
Moving on to the flowchart of activity 2. So again, let's start with the oval shape, which is the start. Next, a rectangle to declare the radius area pi as the oval. Also, another rectangle to declare start loop as boolean. Another rectangle for declare user answer as char. Again, a rectangle to do while start loop equal true. As you can see, there's a one page connector which is the letter A. Next, start loop equal false. Next is the parallelogram to print the input, or the user will input the radius of the circle. And next one, input radius. And this diamond is the decision. Is radius a number? If yes, process the calculated, which is the formula of which area equal pi times radius and radius. The next one is print the area of the circle, and parallelogram to if the user want to input a new radius. And another diamond if user is answer lowercase y or capital Y, then if yes, start loop equal true, which back to is connected to do while start loop equal true, which is the rectangle. And back to the diamond, which is the radius a number. If no, print error message, and the rectangle will ask to would you like to retry, and draw a diamond which did the user answer lowercase y or capital Y. If yes, this is connected to again to start a loop. If no, this is connected to end. And back to this diamond if user is answer y or y, then yes, start loop true.
Okay, now this is our second program for the second activity, which we call the circle area calculator. So the program starts with a greeting message, area of a circle calculator, or a title message rather. Enter the radius. So we're gonna enter a radius, let's say perhaps 3. Then the area of a circle is 28.278. Would you like to input a new radius? Yes. Now let's say 800. Now that reads to around 2,010,880. So that's the area of the circle. That's a big circle. Now, if we enter a letter, the error handling codes will work. So let's say 30Q, error invalid input, would you like to input in your radius? So it says here, please enter numeric values only. Y, and now let's try with a dash. Again, please enter numeric values only. So that's the error handler for this code, or for this program. And if we type in N, it terminates. Now, let's start with the code itself. Now, the code consists of 58 lines. Pretty short. And it's quite simple, honestly. So, declaration of variables. Double radius. Double. Data type double. Variable names, radius. Pi equals 3.142. So as you can see here, I've already declared what the data within variable pi means. Area, character user answer, this is for getting the user response, and the y or n, boolean, start loop, and convert success. Now we start the code with a do while start loop equals true, because as always, we loop the system so that if they want to retry, we go all the way back here, looping, and so on. So start loop equals false, just so it doesn't keep on looping. Console.clear, so it's for this purpose. If they want to re-enter a new input, all of the right lines will be terminated, or will be eliminated, and will be cleared, just so our program looks clean. Afterwards, we go with the title card, enter the radius, and then string input equals console.readline. Now you might be asking, why didn't I declare this here? One smart answer to that is that I won't be using it for so long, so I just put it here as a smaller declaration. I could also put it here, but I just put it here because preference as well. So, input of the user. Now, this string input is used for just parsing or converting the input into a double, and if it's successful, then it becomes the radius, which we have declared here. As you can see there. And if conversion is success, here the boolean, or if we've successfully tried to parse input into a double because it just contains numbers, then we proceed with the ending messages, or the other half of the program. Else if it contains other special symbols like letters, hashtags, underscores, dashes, then we error handle, or we handle the error with these codes. Would you like to input in your radius? If they do, start loop, we go all the way back here. Else, read key, just so that the program doesn't terminate instantly. And that's basically it. So it's quite a short program with a short source code. It's pretty simple. We just added a small error handler just to ensure that the data that has been inputted is actually numbers, and so that the program would not crash or would not encounter any errors over here in this section if the user entered letters or other than numbers. And that's for our activity number 2. Now let's proceed for test 2, operators. Activity number 1, we are tasked to write a program that takes 2 integers as input from the user and performs addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Display the results of each operation.
Moving on the flowchart of activity number 3, which start with the oval shape. That will be the start. Next one is rectangle. This will the process of num1 and num2 as integer. Also, for the next one is the quotient as double. Parallelogram which is print the first number. Next one is input num1 will be go to the on page connector, which is the letter A. This is the connected to letter A. Next one is diamond. Does it contain other than numbers? If no, that B will be connected to the to print error to print enter second number? If yes, this will parallelogram that will be display error message. If the display error message, rectangle will be as user if she wants to retry. And next one is diamond. Does user want to retry? If no, that will be connected to E, which is the end. If yes, this will go to F, which retry to print the first number. And move to letter B on page connector. This will print the second number, input num2, and that will be connected to C on page connector, which is similar to A connector. This contain the numbers. If no, that will be connected to letter D, which is sum equal num1 plus num2. Difference back again to C on page connector. If yes, this will be display error message. If the error message will be displayed, and rectangle if the process that as user if she wants to retry. And diamond, which decision that will ask does user want to retry. If no, that will be the end. And if yes, G, which is connected again to print enter second number. Move on to letter D. Sum equal num1 plus num2. Different, and move to difference num1 equal minus num2. And next one is product equal num1 times num2 plus quotient equal num1 divided by num2. This will be print parallelogram will be print the quotient plus quotient, and moving along to print the sum plus sum, difference plus difference, and product plus product. And that all valids, and that will be the end with oval shape.
So let's begin with the third activity, or the first activity under section 2, which we will call operations list. And as you can see by the title, it says mathematical operations list. Now it's asking the user to prompt a first number, which we will be doing 50, and for the second number, let's say 2. And as you can see, it displays the 4 operations and mathematical operators that was asked in the activity. So addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Addition, we have 50 plus 2, 52. And for the subtraction, we have 50 subtracted by 2 is 48. Multiplication, we have the double of 50 is 100. And for the division, 50 or the half of 50 is 25. Now it's asking the user to enter, or if they want to enter a new value. Let's say yes. And now let's handle the errors. So, first error, if the user enters any special symbol or letters other than numbers for the first number. So we have your 4D, error invalid input, please enter numerical values only. Would you like to try again Y or N? Now we're going to respond to that question by typing in Y. Now let's try another error. Error invalid input, please enter numerical values only. Would you like to try again Y or N? And now if we type in N or no, read key, console.read key, and now if we press anything, it should end the program. Now, enter the first number, 50. And now for the second number, the same thing applies, the same logic, the same error handling, but this time the progress saves, meaning we no longer have to enter the first number all over again. 3E, invalid input, enter numerical values, Y, and as you can see there, it just basically undoes everything besides the first number and the title card. There. And if we correctly input, then it won't show any error handlers, and we'll proceed to the following operations and asking the user if they want to enter a new value or not, and if they don't, read key, now terminate. Now let's move on to the actual source code itself. So of course we begin with declaration of variables, character, user answer. This is for storing the user's answer or the user's response to the y or n or the yes or no. String, first input and second input. Boolean, first conversion, second number conversion. Start loop, continue to second number. Integer, first number, second number, sum, difference, and product. Double, quotient. Now this right here is a special type because, as you can see here, if we divide odd and even, we should get a quotient that has decimal points, which is why the data type that we've assigned to the quotient is a double, which allows it to have decimal points. And as you can see here, we have a rational number and we have a whole or a natural number. And if we divide it by 3, of course, there will be decimal points. Now, if this were to be an integer, the only thing that would be typed in here is 13, which is why I converted it into a double instead, just so that it looks mathematically correct. Now let's start the program with a do-while loop, as always, so that we can loop the system if they want to re-enter a new input. Do while start loop is true. Afterwards, we switch that to false, as always, so that it doesn't keep on looping. Then we clear the console just so it's clean, because, you know, after all of this has been inputted, and if they want to retry and we don't clean the console, it's going to look very, very dirty. And we want to keep it clean and simple. So, title card, enter the first number, and we read the user's response, and then we store it to the user input. Oh, and by the way, we have here two inputs: first input, second input, first num and second num. Now you might be asking, why are there two for strings and two for integers? Well, as what I've done with the previous activities, I've converted the user's answers to the correct data types, and I check them first before converting them. So these variables right here are used to check the user's answer, if it's appropriate or not, and if it is, then we proceed to parsing it or converting it into integers. So that's that. Now that that's out of the way, here it is. This is what I was explaining. First input console.read line, first number conversion equals try parse first input into an integer, which will then be called, or which will then be declared into the first number. If first number conversion was a success, or if it was true, then we proceed with the second number. Else, invalid input, please enter numerical values only. So this error applies, or it shows if the system has detected that our first number contains other special characters. And if they want to retry, start loop, we go all the way back here. Else, if they don't, console.read key, and if they type any key, the program terminates. And after that, if it was successful, we move on to the second number, and this right here is just the same as these guys right here. So we try and parse it, or we try and convert the second input into an integer, which will then be declared, or the value of the second input will be passed on to the second num integer or variable, which has an integer data type. If second end conversion was a success, then we go ahead and do the following processes. Here is for addition. So we have sum equals to first num plus second num. So these are now all integers, right? So subtraction, multiplication, and division. So for the division, we first convert the second num and the first num into doubles. So here, double. This is what we're converting the first num into. First num q. The reason why I typed in q, because in mathematics, the set number symbol, or the set symbol for rational numbers, which are fractions and decimals, is a q. So that's just a small trivia. Then for the second number, we declare double. Second num q is the conversion of the second num. And once they've been converted, now, because we entered integers, right, these will now look like, let's say you entered for the first num, let's say you entered 7, And if they've been converted into first num q, it will now look as 7.00. And for the second number, if you've entered 15, it will look like 15.00 for the second num q. Now the quotient, as you can recall, it was a double. And for the process, we have quotient equals first num q divided by second num q. And now we display the output once we have processed all of the following numbers and operations. Now what this means is break line. That's so that there's spaces in between this addition, this subtraction, this line, multiplication, and so on. So that's just to make the calculator or the operations list much cleaner. And we concatenate addition, space, plus first num, addition sign, second num equals sum, and all of that logic applies. And now we ask the user for if they want to enter a new value. And if they do, start loop all over again. We go all the way back here. And if they don't, read key. And that's it. Oh wait, no, we have this as well. So if the second number conversion is not successful, we handle the error, or the system handles the error. User, would you like to try again? If the user answers Y or yes, continue to second n equals true, which will then go all the way back to here, right? Because it's a loop, so that the progress saves. Then we clear the console just so it's clean. So all of this, all of that, wait no, all of this, first number, second number, and this will be cleared. Then we type in these, so that it gives the illusion that these were already done, so that the user doesn't get confused. Because if we remove this, then all that's going to be left on the system is enter the second number, which is quite inconvenient for the user, because then they won't be able to see the first number that they've entered. And let me demonstrate that. So as you can see here, 44, 2D, and if we type in Y, enter the second number, and if we include these 3 or 4 lines, it should look like this. As you can see, that's way convenient and way better than the first one. Else, if they type in no, read key, and if they press any key, the program terminates. And all of this is done while continue to second number is true, because you know it's a loop. And that's it. That's the code. That's the source code for activity number 3. And lastly, for the fourth activity, we're tasked to write a program that checks if a number is even or odd using the modulus operator. Ask the user for input and display the result. And as always, the flowchart.
Moving on, the flowchart of activity number 4, which is the last one. Start, oval shape to indicate the start. Next one is rectangle. Declare user input as integer, reminder as integer, start loop as integer, boolean, user response as char. And next one is rectangle. Start loop false. As you can see, there's a on-page connector. Next is print enter a number. This will ask you to print will input any number. Then read user input, which the rectangle. This will be the read the response of the user that number input. The next one is the diamond, which is the decision. Is user input a number? That will be indicated if the user put a number. Then if yes, reminder that will be connected to rectangle, reminder equal user input %2. Then also connected to diamond is reminder equals 0, which is the decision. If yes, the number will be the even. And also print, then connected to print, would you like to retry, yes or no? Then rectangle is read user response to get the user response. Next is user response equal y or y. If he answer yes, capital yes, the start loop will be continue, which to connected to start loop equal false. And if now that connected to oval shape end, then back to diamond is reminder equals 0. If no, that indicated the number is odd, and that will be end, that b is connected to n. Back to again to diamond is user input a number. If the user put a number, if now rectangle the process that print error invalid value, please enter numbers only. And she will be asked to would like to retry, yes or no. Then read user response to get the user response. Is the next is the decision, which is the diamond is user response equal y or y. If he answer yes, the start loop will continue. If no, then that will be the end.
So let's move on to the fourth activity, which is we called even or odd identifier. Now it's prompting the user to enter any number, say 40, and it will guess correctly that the number that has been entered is an even or odd. Let's say here 89, odd, 900, even. Let's enter a big number, let's say 123, odd number. Would you like to enter another number? Now if we type in n, read key, and whatever the user presses, it will terminate the program. Now error handlers. The first error is if the number is too big, or if it's at around 100 billions and above. So let's say here 5. Okay, that's not just 100 billions. I think that's probably around sextillions or something. But it's a lot, so it should type in an error. So invalid input, please enter numerical values only, because of course that's a very, very large number. So would you like to try again? Yes. Now the second error is if the user enters any special characters other than numbers. Invalid input. Invalid input. And of course, invalid input. Now if the user types in n, then the system terminates. So that's basically the error handler. 2 error handlers for this system. So let's say, of course, it errors, and of course it errors again. Let's say 504, even number. So that's how the system works. Now let's move into the actual source code itself. Declaration of variables, we have character user answer, string input num string, integer input num, double modulo or modulus, input num q, which is the decimal version of input num, boolean valid check, and start loop. So as you can see here, we have 2 input nums. This is for storing the actual user's response for entering a number. And this is for converting the string into an integer after they've checked if the number is actually a number and does not contain any other mixed symbols or special characters. Now let's begin the code with a do. Do while start loop equals true, because of course we're looping the system just so that if they want to enter another number, then the system resets or restarts all over again back to here. Then title card, enter a number, and the number will be stored into input num string. Now this is the part where we convert input num string into input num after we've tried parsing it. So try parse input num string into an integer, and the value of input num string will be entered or will be passed on to input num, which is an integer. And if it's successful, or if input num string does not contain any other symbols and special characters, and it only contains numbers, then we proceed with the following processes. Input num q, or the decimal version, or the rational version, whatever you want to call it, as long as it's rational. Input num, so we just give the value of input num q with the value of input num. Then the modulo, which is this, a double, is equals to input num q percentage sign 2. So what this does, okay, I'm gonna explain it very, very thoroughly and very carefully. What this does is that input num q, which is a double variable and a double data type number, divides itself by 2, or input num q gets divided by 2, and now the remainder is stored onto the modulus. Let's say 2 divided by 2, that's 1, right? So the quotient is 1 and the remainder is 0, and the 0, that's the modulus. Now that you know how that works, let's move in with the conditional statement. If modulus is 0 or 0.00, because as you can see here, it's a double, then we type in that is an even number, because all even numbers are divided evenly, meaning they don't have any remainders. Would you like to enter another number? User answer, we store the response to the user answer, and of course we first convert it to characters so that the system reads it actually and does not send an error. If the user answer is yes, start loop equals true, console.clear, so we go all the way back here and then we clear all of this. Else read key. And we have here another else, and that's for this right here. If the modulus, or if there is actually a value for the modulus that isn't 0, so let's say 3 divided by 2, so that's 1 carry 1, right? So because the modulus's value is 1, then it will say it is an odd number. And of course, if they want to retry, the loop starts again. That's basically the whole process of the source code, and I really hope that you understood that because it is quite complicated at first, but as soon as you learn it and learn more coding, you're going to understand it thoroughly and even better. Now this else right here leads to here. If the valid check is false, or if input num is actually mixed with letters and special symbols, then we handle that error. Would you like to try again? User answer y, start loop equals true, console.clear, so which means that we're going to restart the whole code to here again. And that's basically it. That's the whole source code for the last activity, and I hope that you understood something from here.
That's all. Thank you for listening. Once again, my name is Atienza, partnered by Manuel Tan in this performance.